So there's this great story told by this ex-professional football player, Bo Eason, sorry. And he played 20 years for the Oilers. And then he gets transferred to the 49ers. And he always considered Jerry Rice the best football player ever. So Bo, ever since he started playing football, he made this commitment that he'd be the first one on the field and the last off the field for every practice. So he's now playing for the 49ers. He shows up to his workout, and of course he shows up an hour early. And he's used to it that he's the only one there. He gets started ahead of time, and lo and behold, he thinks he's there, and he looks, and there's Jerry Rice, great football player, which makes him think, why is Jerry Rice here? Why isn't like somebody who's just starting out or somebody who's just scrambling to maintain on the team? But they're there, and he says the workouts, it starts with this warm-up where Joe Montana, he lobs some balls, and there's 16 receivers lined up. And the first one shoots out, and Montana just, glides a ball right to him. Next one, he catches the ball, walks it back. Next one, just, a pro glide right to the receiver. Walks over, hands him the ball back, and takes his place. Then Jerry gets up, and Bo thinks, this is going to be interesting. And he bolts it, and Montana puts some hot sauce on it, and bam, he throws it. And then Jerry catches the ball and turns around and runs full speed, 100 yards to the end zone. And then full speed all the way back. And Bo is like, well, where's he going? What's going on? And every single time after time after time, every time, bam, 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 he is running 100 yards. So he probably ran 10 miles that day. And it's always at full throttle. So after a couple hours of the workout, Bo asks Jerry, he says, Jerry, I got to ask you a question. Why do you do that? And Jerry says, because I made this promise. Whenever these hands touch a ball, my body will end up in the end zone. Love that. He just goes full speed. And he says, there are no accidents. Either you've turned up the volume on your commitment or you haven't. But there are no accidents. And he said, working with Jerry Rice, he realized, he can turn up his commitment even more. And this is, to me, the amazing part, is Bo said, he turned up the commitment. And if you just turn up the commitment in one area of your life, just like working out, all the other areas of your life, the commitment rises as well. He found that his commitment to his kids, to his marriage, it all increased. And so he said, if ever in any part of my life I turn down the volume on commitment, that's my mistake. You have to go through life with your commitment turned up on high. And I like that because there's two types of commitment that people make. There's the even if commitment or the as long as commitment. The even if commitment is even if I am sick, I am tired, I'm hurting, there's a natural disaster, I will keep my commitments. And you find examples of that. Like my favorite is Ruth in the book of Ruth, where she says to her mother-in-law that she's going to stick with her to protect her. And her mother-in-law says, all that's ahead is poverty. They'll hate you. You'll be persecuted. And Ruth gives that great line, where you go, I will go. Where you die, I will die. Nothing will separate me from you. And Ruth doesn't. She goes through poverty and hatred. She makes a statement that she's stronger than poverty. That's commitment pulled up to its highest. That's even if commitment. Even like, that actor who died recently, Black Panther? Chadwick Boseman. He was battling cancer, and none of his coworkers knew. That's an even if commitment. Even if I have cancer, I am showing up, giving it my all. I love people like that. That's what Bo learned. The opposite is the as long as commitment. I'll be committed as long as, there's not bad weather, I feel like it, there's not a better show on TV, I'm committed. And the problem is that that's where you have the volume of your commitment turned way down. And here's the odd part. For a lot of people, if you have your commitment level turned way down, you mask it with a lot of propaganda. And what I mean by that is this. Like, when I was at the U of I noticed this, is that when, let's say some guy really is not committed to his girlfriend, and you kind of know because, first of all, nowhere in their life do they show any skills of commitment. And the relationship is doomed. And so what he covers it up with is a lot of, I just love you, I love you, but it's going to crash and burn. So if you can't have commitment, you cover it up with propaganda. That's what I've found. And here's another example, an even if commitment. I know this priest who's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. But his whole life is an as long as commitment, as long as there's not something better going on. And once somebody was dying in a hospital, they were dying in a hospital, and they asked the priest to come and anoint him. And he said no because, and this was his reason. It's 2:30, and who wants to drive in traffic at 2:30? And so he really just wanted to stay home and watch TV. He's not a bad person, but that's a commitment. Somebody's dying and you'd rather watch TV? Now here's the twister, is that he's a nice guy, but he always loves to preach on love, that God is love and you just have to love. Well, maybe love should be shown by getting off the couch and anointing somebody who's dying. Maybe, that's what I mean by propaganda. If your commitment's really low, you like to say, God is love, we should love, maybe you should be shown in a little bit of action. And I mention that because in the Gospel of Matthew, and that's what we're reading this week, Matthew is very serious. I love Matthew for this reason. Matthew openly, when I say Matthew, I mean Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, he mocks people who have low commitment. And he'll say, oh yeah, everybody says they love God, but you never see him do much work. And so for Matthew doesn't really care about your words. Words are cheap. Matthew cares about your commitment, that you're putting them into action. And so this parable that's happened today is a great example. This parable happens when happens on Palm Sunday, when Jesus goes into the temple and he is mad. It's just a place of corruption. And he starts overturning the money changers' tables. Remember all that? And then he gives the parable to the priests. Because the priests, they love to say they love God. They love all this stuff. But they're not helping anybody. And so Jesus gives this parable. What is religion? You have two sons. And you know the parable. One son, the father says, do some work in my vineyard. And the son says, yes, sure, I love you, you betcha. Never sets foot. The other son, he's irritated, says no, but he ends up working in the vineyard. Which one did the will of the Father? And he gives this parable because he's giving it to the priests. They have to admit, well, the one who does the work. He's giving it because shouldn't religion be defined by a sense of commitment? I really hate where in American society, if you call somebody religious, what they mean is that you're a nice person. To me, nice is horrible. Nice is easy. It's phony. Kind is better. Rather than define religion as just being nice, why don't people think, oh, he's religious, which means he has his commitment knob turned up to full volume. He will be there no matter what. That's the kind of religion that Jesus wants in the Gospel of Matthew. That's why he always mocks those people who talk a big game, but you never see him get off the couch. It's like Bo or Jerry Rice or Ruth. they are committed. Or even just like, I love this. I met this woman a couple months ago. I was doing a wedding at St. John's, and I showed up early, just because you never know about traffic. And she was just going into the cathedral for something, and she said, well, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, I'm here for a wedding. And she says, oh, I hope the couple have a great marriage. I hope they are very committed. And I said, are you married? And she says, no, I'm a widower. And she said, I just had a great marriage. And she said, had a great marriage. We were very united. We were committed. And my husband knew that the only way he was getting out of this marriage is in a coffin. But I kind of liked it. Like, she really did wish that the couple getting married, that they're intensely committed to each other. Why not make that the definition of religion? That's what the parable is about. God gets very tired of us saying, oh, I just love you, Jesus, but you never see him do much work. And the best part is, like, and this is grit, by the way. So I'm still on the grit talk. I'm still talking about Gora. You have this intensity that you don't turn down the volume. Why not let that be your definition of religion? And so, like, there's a bunch of books I really want people to read. I know I'm weird. Like The Immortal Irishman. You couldn't kill him with an axe. Boys in the Boat. Or Bo Eason. He wrote a book. I'm only actually halfway through it. It's called There Is No Plan B, which I like. You know, if you're going to do something, do it with all your commitment. There is no plan B. Now, I love the book, and for any teenagers, I recommend it, but I got to warn you, it does have some cuss words in the book, because, like, he gets a lot of his advice from his dad, who was a real-life cowboy, and kind of used some foul language. I'm kind of immune to foul language because, you know, some of the people I work with. No, it's actually, I hate to say this, people from Butte, Montana know their foul language. But, so, like, I just gloss over that. So if you're sensitive about foul language, don't read his book, There Is No Plan B. But his point in life is the same point about religion. You're either showing up with all your commitment, or you're just talking a good game. In the Gospel of Matthew, all Jesus cares about is that you're doing work in the vineyard. You're actually doing the work of love. That's commitment, not talking about love, putting it into action. And so, together, let us stand and profess our faith.